Stephen Michael Ross. It's been
Brian.
it's been thanks. It's
Brian for next month.
been it's been a few weeks since we Stephen Michael Ross. It's
Brian.
been it's been thanks. It's
So
been
long that we have an echo.
I think it's because I had YouTube up at the same time. It's on a delayed feed, so that was really weird. I was like,
That was
oh no, man, is my internet crapping out again?
not gonna lie.
Um, well, it's been a few weeks since we've had an episode together for Chinwag Nation. We're on episode number 30, which is pretty
Hey,
awesome. Yeah,
30.
woo, we made it. And we are talking about something that I think is relevant for folks in the workforce today, for leaders in the workforce today, for I don't know, chief of staff, organizational effectiveness, transformation leaders, you name it. This idea of a living organization in the workplace, and the first example that came to mind for me was like this idea of an organization being a forest, right, versus just a mechanical process. And uh, where you have step one, step two, step three. You have scripted, structured hierarchy versus this like fluid and ever changing environment. I think the closest um, organizational concept that has been introduced in recent history is this idea of a holacracy, right? This kind of fluid, unstructured, you know, um, non-hierarchical environment for doing work and making decisions. But the power and the emphasis and the I guess the commitment to structured workforces, structured workplaces is hard to overcome. It's been around for so long, and um, I guess what we're talking about is idea that like if you're like the example that comes to mind is if you're in a supply chain, right? You're building a car, and as the car moves through the supply chain, you have your person putting on the wheels, your person putting on the doors, your person putting on the windshield, and it's just like single please flow, everything in order to produce the outcome. You can overlay that concept in product development, even though there's probably a little bit more fluidity within that process. You can overlay that example with like strategic planning, organizational planning, right? Step one is you develop your strategy, then your objectives, and your action items, and then everybody has their place in their role. But I think what we're talking about and what is maybe even front and center, probably even more possible than ever, is this idea of like you show up to work, Stephen, and today you're, a leader of people. Tomorrow, with this concept that we're talking about, you have the potential to do 5 different jobs within a single day, right? You could be, hey, the data analytics AI platforms telling you that you need to come in today and focus on, you know, um, building out a new prototype for an AI interface, and just everything's all the data, the comprehensive data is telling you that that's your focus for your work. And then the next day you come in and you're doing something different. In fact, this concept, you could, within one day, you could have 3 different jobs, right? And 3 different ways of doing work. And you may not even have a leader. Your leader might be an AI agent, right? That's organizing a group of people to complete a set of tasks collectively. And so the questions we're gonna pose today is, one, what do you think it'll take to develop and build an environment like that? Two, what challenges do you see, right? What challenges do you see in implementing this? And then third is it even possible? I mean, you look at organizations today blowing through their AI spend in the first quarter, right, of the organization, and there's a lot of reasons why. That's probably a whole different episode. But like from your perspective, like this idea of this like living organization where it's just completely fluid, it's completely open. What you show up to every day could be different. because the demands of the organization and the information that's available is telling you that you need to focus on something different. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think it'll take?
Yeah, it's interesting because as you're teeing this up, Brian, and for this a lot of these, right? We do very little preparation because we just try to have an authentic chinwag. I was thinking of the concept of the mathematical concept of chaos theory, right? And I won't get too into it,
You're gonna
right?
have to explain. You might have to explain it for some
But
folks. What you mean?
uh, chaos theory is like the study of systems, right?
Mm.
And you'll you'd be surprised, but there's like chaos theory is applied across all sorts of different types of um, logistics in the world. So, for example, the reason why your street light may turn from red to green based off of a certain amount of demand and only stay green for a certain amount of time, right? A lot of
Oh
that
yeah, like
actually,
the sensor lights, right?
yeah.
They count
Well,
how many cars and how much pressure is on the
there's
road.
there's some that are censored, and then there's some that my understanding is that they're actually part of a calculation. And if there's, say, like a ton of traffic on the freeway, they will limit how many cars are actually onboarding onto the freeway at a particular
Yeah,
time to keep the
yeah.
flow going. Right? Um, and so I think of the study of systems, and what that means is that in an infinite possibilities of choices in different ways, right? There's usually one path that is the most efficient, right? And I think we're seeing organizations today try to figure out what path that may be. Your nature metaphor, I think, um, is spot on, because one of the most studied systems in the world as it relates to chaos theory is actually fungi and mitochondria and how they actually communicate. And they'll actually communicate to the trees in a forest to tell trees and different plants like what's actually happening miles away. Um, and they grow these communication networks in the most efficient way possible. And I think when we say like what needs to happen for an organization to be living, right? I think the structure in which we are used to, not just the people, but organizational cultures, are going to have to shift. The nature in which you get your data is going to have to shift, right? Sometimes you're going to either have a stochastic data set in the sense that you may not have a lot of data points to study, but you know that the risk may be worth the reward to go and experiment and try. Maybe you hit a dead end, but then you try the next path and then you win, right? You got to support a culture that does that. At the same time, I also want to say, like, I think a lot of organizations are already thinking about this and implementing this. As somebody who started in a role about 13 months ago, in that time, I have had 4 different roles, and I've been a part of 6 different reorgs. And I know, like,
Well,
everybody tells me
but
this is
but
not normal.
but here's the concept, right? Like within this proposal that we're talking about tonight, reorgs don't even happen anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I didn't apply to a different job. Um, I didn't ask. I was just like, hey, where there's problems to be solved and value to be had, you have to shift your priorities at any given time. Um, and I would say, like, it can be a little messy right now in the sense that, yes, there are reporting structures and there are things that have to shift for you to be able to go and
Yeah.
address those problems. But we're seeing that more and more. And honestly, to take it even a step further, um, I have thought for the last couple of years about sort of the foundational education that, or I should say, traditional education that people are going to need to be able to enter the workforce in any particular field. Because I can't even fathom nowadays starting a program that's going to take me 2 to 4 years and have that curriculum followed over those 4 years. Like, the
I
way that I have to be nimble and strategize and
I
move,
I
right?
don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's like the concept of business requirements for a project,
Yeah,
right? It's almost like your education's aging as you're going through it.
exactly. Like by the time I graduate, I'm already obsolete. I'm like, what is happening here? And
Crazy.
and we see that in hiring now. It's less about the like the hard experiences and more about like the thought process people have. Like
Yeah.
who's okay with like showing up today and realizing, oh, there's a problem here. I'm gonna go and own it, go fix it. And now there's a problem over here and I'm
I,
gonna own it and I'm gonna go fix it. And it's just
I I don't know. At least
yeah, that's what it
at
feels
least
like,
it,
man.
at least in my community, I think a lot of people would like a job like that. That's not
Yeah.
like the same old every day. It's like I think it's just whether the organization's ready for it. I wrote down like this is my just general theory
Yeah.
with fundamental transformational shifts like that. Like sometimes you just like in order for this to happen, you either have to have the courage, right? Like you have to make I wrote down you have to have bottom line thinking versus ethical thinking. And I can explain that in a second, what I mean by that. And the other is you just have to start from scratch. You literally have to build the organization from ground up with this concept in mind and design everything into it. Because within an organization, like there's so many dependencies, right, to actually stand something like this up. How you run HR, maybe HR is not even a thing. I don't know. How you run decision making processes. Like right now in most organizations, the decision making usually uh, gets delegated or bestowed at the higher you go up and the less, right? Well, the farther you are down in an organization, the less decision making prowess or power that you have. When I say bottom line thinking versus ethical thinking, like if you're going to take an existing organization and change it to this concept of a living organization, um, it you have to just kind of make decisions that people are not everybody's going to be happy with. You just have to go do it, right? And not worry about losing people, not worry about the temporary setbacks that will be in place, right? You just have to go for it. And sometimes, and I learned this in school when the education didn't age as you were going through it. Um, that not every business decision is ethical, not every ethical decision is a good business decision, right? And there's always a little bit of both in every decision, depending on what you're doing. And so I think stuff like this just requires like bottom line thinking, like we're just going to go do it and we're going to get it done.
It
Uh,
You said the word courage, and I want to piggyback on that because I think now more than ever, accountability is so important.
yeah,
At least I hear time and time again from everybody within my network, they're looking for people who can own the problem and own the solution.
hmm
And we've talked about the game in the past, right? And a lot of the game is like, how do I mitigate my own risk and throw hot potatoes somewhere else? Because, trying to protect my people and trying to protect my political capital or whatever it may be. But now more than ever, it's like, no, you got to shield up, take it, own it, be accountable, have the courage to like run into things that you don't know and figure it out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that's I in order to get that type of experience and training in today's environment is very rare. It's not common, right? To be in a position where you're exposed to one being trusted and enabled to make decisions on the fly and bump into things, right? Versus, a punitive action happening for messing up. And two, like a lot of high risk decisions, like I mentioned earlier, are bestowed upon those in higher level positions, right? So if everybody is to be part of this idea of a living organization, like these concepts that we've been talking about actually have to come to fruition, right? Failing forward, enabling people to bump into things, pushing decision making down to the lowest levels. and you kind of touched on some of the things around challenges. Like, what do you think if this were to be implemented, if an organization had the leadership structure that was courageous enough to try this out, or if an organization that was starting from scratch said we're gonna build our organization this way, what challenges do you think they would come across?
Before I answer that,
Mhm.
um, not to completely break the flow and rhythm here, Brian, but I
No.
realized we didn't do our housekeeping, and just want to
Oh,
throw it out there. These opinions do not reflect our
okay.
past, current, future employers. And
Yeah.
at the same time, we have quite a few people in our chat today, and I just want to thank people for being here.
Yeah.
Uh,
My amazing, beautiful wife, our number one fan, is here. And then
well,
looks like she's
up
got some of her
until,
homies on there too.
up until episode 30, Johanna was not just our number one fan, but our
Yeah. We got a whole
yeah, we got
collection of
Claire
folks.
and Christy and Jessica. Just appreciate you all being here. So, what challenges are we going to run into?
Well, like, what if an organization did this, if they committed to it and they said this is where we're going, like what bumps in the road do you anticipate? Or maybe what, as you said, it's happening today, like what bumps in the road are you not within your own necessarily, but have you like that you're reading about, that what challenges do you see?
Yeah, man, I mean, there's so many what I would call like conceptual challenges that an organization would run into, right? Like the way that we would traditionally drive towards our mission and vision and the reputation that organizations have, right? Those themselves might get put on the line. You talked about this concept of bottom line thinking versus ethical thinking. And I mean, we're seeing headlines all the time of businesses making really tough organizational and operational decisions. And um, yes, you'll read like some people are pretty upset by that. At the same time, you'll read from a lot of these investment papers that hey, what they're doing makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And you'll even read from people that have been impacted, like, hey, what they're doing makes a ton of sense. Um, the business is just different now. And anytime your business changes or your approach changes, especially if you're a public organization, you've got a lot of eyes on you, right? You're not just risking the bottom line, you're risking your reputation, you're risking confidence. And then on top of that, the usual financial risk. And I think one of the challenges with operating a business is sort of like a living organism is that, especially because you don't know and you're operating in real time, like you can give your best guess. And I mean, there's some brilliant strategists out there who probably have a pretty darn good guess, but you're
Yeah.
making bets, right?
Well,
And
it reminds me of our garbage in, garbage out episode a while back, right? Like a lot of these learning models, these are based off of whatever data you put into them. And if you if you want to have a truly high functioning living organization, you have to have a good, solid, strong foundational data set, right?
yeah,
To learn from and pull from. And so I'm thinking, one of the challenges is this is probably years away, and organizations are going to have to invest a pretty good chunk of money in their data governance and their data structuring, right? They're going to oh, our number. My mom has joined the call, Steve.
oh man, the
Yeah, my
whole
mom.
thing.
Where are you at, man? Where are you at? You need to get your family up on this
If
this
you want me to
podcast.
continue coming here, pressuring my wife to come and
Yeah,
join,
right.
I would not do
Pure.
that.
Yeah, right.
She is currently
Uh,
chasing 3 kids downstairs.
yeah,
Uh,
probably. Yeah, I know, man. But like there's some foundational pieces I think that have to be in place for like, especially if you're incorporating AI agents and this idea of, you don't know what job you're going to show up to every day. you're gonna have to invest in the quality of your data. You're gonna have to invest in the quality of the information that's going into these systems that are going to be pouring out the direction of your day-to-day work or the organization itself. And Jessica wrote in the chat, this is an interesting, conversation because she's standing up a 501c3 nonprofit. And yeah, I mean, for you, Jessica, I could see like, standard nonprofit environment, you have a certain nonprofit goal and structure, and then you have, a strong volunteer base with specific roles. But in this concept, you might have just volunteer, and here are all the things that you possibly could do. And if you have an AI infrastructure that has a really good data set, you could then say, like, you have this pool of volunteers who could all potentially do, right, different work depending on your 501c3 needs in the moment. Grant writing one day, and taking care of foster puppies the next. I don't know what your 501c3 is, but
it's fascinating because, Brian, I know both you and myself have extensive experience working with 501c3 organizations. I'm currently actually the president of one, and there's so much opportunity to, I think, maximize the ROI on
return on investment. Return on investment.
return on investment for dollars to impact on vulnerable communities or whatever it is that you're doing. Especially starting using this technology, using this thought process early on, because it's hard to go backwards, especially when you're working in either like a public space or a 501c space. There's a 501c3. I always get it backwards, because you have very little margins to go and actually reinvest on sort of these foundational things and how you run your business. It's tricky, really tricky.
Yeah, one of the other challenges I wrote down is, you're literally, if an organization's already existing and you want to introduce this concept, you're literally asking a large group of people. And this, I don't know if this is too dramatic. You need to tell, you're my over dramatic check. But you're
Brian,
literally asking.
probably overly dramatic.
Oh my God, let me finish. Let me say it. You're literally asking a group of people to give up their norms and their belief systems. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever read any books on like brain science and neuroscience and this idea of belief systems, which I'm sure you have, the ladder of inference, right? This idea that, like, once belief systems are set, it's enormously difficult to actually shift people off their spot. Like, for everybody listening, if you have a belief system, it is like, think about something you really, really believe in. How many people are you going to allow to how many people, who in your life would you allow to tell you to move off of that spot in terms of what you believe in? Not very many, not even probably the closest people to you. So if you're in an organization and you're working and they come and say, hey, guess what? You've been doing this job for the last 15 years, but over the next few years, you're going to be doing 7 different types of jobs potentially. And guess what? When you show up for work, you may not even know what you're going to be doing, because
Yeah.
the data is going to tell us what's most important. Market, depending on your industry, market demands, this idea of like massive, large data set analysis. And so
Yeah.
big data.
I mean, it begs a question. It's be an interesting conversation to have at some point, Brian. But like, what are our true beliefs versus like what are we just comfortable with and know, right? I mean, you see these things posts. You see people post about this stuff all the time, right? Like, oh, my company called me a family, and then they're like,
Yeah.
they don't know that I just applied to 7 other families this week. And you'll see things like, oh, people, the CEO is just learning that now people care more about their paychecks than the actual mission and vision of the company that they work for, right? And so there's all these narratives out there. I know, like through my whole entire um, career span, right? I've been driven to just try to maximize the impact or the value that I can in whatever role I'm in for that given period of time. And I've never looked for promotion because of a title. I've never looked for promotion through like a particular company. In fact, like I left the Fortune 150 world at one point to go and do public service because I wanted to do valuable work there. Right. And I've found that I'm happiest when my personal creed sort of aligns to the core values of either, well, ideally both the organization that I'm working for and the customers in which I'm
Okay.
producing something for, right? And with that, like I'm okay to like change around or have my role change around 100 times a day. I'm okay to have to, the transition from waterfall to agile, which I think you were talking about agile earlier. Like, all right, we want to try something new, fine, let's go for it. Like, I don't mind breaking out of that, that comfortable routine. What I do mind is like when my core beliefs feel misaligned.
Well,
Doing.
I think you're like, if you were to like apply the 80-20 rule, I think you're the 20, right? I think here's what I'm proposing is 80% of the workforce, this concept is misaligned with their belief system.
Yeah.
They're misaligned with what they're used to showing up to every day. It's misaligned with their norms. I'm not talking about personal values. I'm talking about like work values. Like if you told uh, an organization, say like a tenured organization, that where people have their fixed roles and their fixed jobs, maybe even a represented union environment, right, where people like their roles are defined by the collective bargaining agreement, and you came in and said, hey, guess what, in our next CBA write up, you're going to have potentially five different roles, you know. And I don't, I think that, um, that's probably going to be one of
Yeah.
the biggest challenges. Let's see, we got some comments in here. Sounds like we're talking about our belief system and how it applies while we doing business or working for a business.
And so
Yeah,
Nicole mentioned earlier,
yeah.
she said just came in and have no clue what we were talking about.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah. We're talking about, yeah, Nicole. We're talking about this idea that like, what if there was an organization that was living, and a living organization, and you showed up to work and your job wasn't fixed. The data analytics, the AI in your organization, maybe even an AI agent, basically defined your work on a day-to-day basis, and maybe even sometimes in the middle of the day, your work would shift and change. All the systems and processes are all data driven, and it impacts what you're focusing on and what you're working on in the moment, from day to day, even hour to hour. And we've talked about, oh yeah, no worries, no problem. We talked about, one, what would it take? Two, what are the challenges? And then kind of this last idea, as we're wrapping up, is it even possible, like, to do? And I think we've touched on that a little bit. Like there is a possibility. I think it goes beyond the walls of an organization, though, Stephen. I think this is an industry consideration in terms of how people are compensated for kind of like a multidisciplinary role. Like, you know, wage structures are set, right, by maybe hierarchy, and they're also set by like types of work, right? The systems engineer is going to make more than the person flipping burgers at a fast food restaurant, right? Like, but what if you did both within your job? It's a little bit outlandish, but like that's the idea, is like you have to look at compensation structures. You have to look at accountability structures. It's like, how do you actually hold somebody accountable for potentially 6 different types of work that they accomplished within a one day, and making sure that they're hitting their targets when their targets could be in 3 different areas of discipline potentially. And then leadership structures, like just the whole theory behind compensation, theory behind accountability structures, theory behind leadership structures, theory behind power structures. I think it's probably one of the going to a living organization like that is probably one of the most disruptive concepts in the workplace in general.
Absolutely. I want to, so I know we're getting close to time here too, Brian, but we had a LinkedIn user here pose a question, and
Mhm.
uh, I myself had my own sort of like visceral reaction to this. It says the points you both are bringing up in investing in quality of information is so important. When employees come in every day and the expectation is that they work on what is needed that day instead of adhering to a fixed scope of work, does an organization ever get a chance to develop SMEs? I would
Oh,
imagine this would have a negative impact long term if most employees were only learning and retaining exactly what they needed to do for their job that day. And I wanted to call that out because, Brian, I think you and I are both at this point in our career where we have a brand and a reputation. We could call ourselves subject matter experts on certain things, right?
yeah,
And I am finding myself now having to expand my scope drastically, and oftentimes clinging for an opportunity to feel like I can sink my feet into an opportunity long enough to drive the value that I want to drive or the impact that I want to drive in the short period of time that I might be working on something before I get tapped on the shoulder to shift to something else. And I've heard when we're talking about compensation structures and things like this that this concept of titles and our notion of hierarchy is changing based off of value realization and impact.
that's
Like,
right.
oh, you might be a level X and that translates to such and such title. But now people are more looking at it like X is part of this compensation band, and you can't just be sitting or even
That's
just
right.
general, right? Like you've got to be driving that impact. And I think we're going to see that shift. And I could see from my own experience a couple of things that have already happened to me over the last couple of years. One of which is there's leaders who are developing cultures that allow me to take the risks and the leaps that I need to make to try and go and solve things that I know very little about. I'm not a subject matter expert. I'm having to be curious. I'm having to be driven. I'm having to go out and figure it out,
That's
even if
right.
it's completely out of the depth and breadth of something that I've known. There are some leaders who, based off of their expectation structure or based off of their concept of what constitutes failure or success, don't really lend I would say, like a healthy atmosphere for you to be able to go and do those things, even though the pressure is there. At the same time, there are leaders who are like, what did you learn? What are we doing next? Right? Like, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Mhm.
Um, you took a risk. It didn't pay off this time, but you've learned something that now drives your next decision. And that's going to get us to the results that we're looking for. And as I get more and more of that experience, I get more and more comfortable having sort of this entrepreneurial type of approach, right? This like go get them approach. And then I find myself like reflecting on that experience and seeing employees who may be in a lower hierarchy than myself, or even in the same hierarchy as myself, but may not necessarily share that same skill set. And I find myself now in a more mentoring and coaching type of role, helping and partnering with these people so they can go and take those risks, that they can learn to navigate this. And one tip I want to throw out there around this concept of being a SME is I'm finding that your network, though in the past people would say network is everything, I'd say that now it's more important than ever, right? Like if I know a really good data engineer, I don't have to become a data engineer. And if we have a good enough rapport to where I'm like, hey, I've got this really high priority, it's linked to XYZ. Could you help me out? Come in here, even if you can spend 20% on this and coach me to do the other 80%, teach me your ways, right? I can now become a data engineer. Or maybe you need that HR perspective, or maybe you need that finance perspective, but you need people who are going to be willing to work with you and be versatile in their approach and nimble in their approach as well. Um, and then, shared credit along the way, right? Oh, this person stepped in, helped me out. We delivered this result, right? Team effort. We got there quickly.
Will you reread the LinkedIn comment again?
Yeah, it says the points you both bring up about investing into quality of information is so important. When employees come in every day, an expectation is the way, or is that they work on what is needed that day instead of adhering to a fixed scope of work. Does an organization ever get the chance to develop SMEs? I would
Oh,
imagine this may have a negative impact long term if most employees were only learning and retaining exactly what they needed to do for their job for that particular day.
I think that's what we're proposing, right? Is that there will no longer be this concept of a SME anymore. And and how you get, like, it's the whole covey, you like begin with the end in mind. What are the
Yeah.
outcomes we're trying to achieve? And or what are the problems we're trying to solve? And then pulling in those people with, maybe this is like, I think, pure HRMS concepts right there. You're cataloged for your skill sets and your applied experience, and then they assign the people, right? The system assigns the people to the problem, or the system assigns the people to get to the outcome that needs to be solved for. I think what you're talking about, Stephen, is probably how we're gonna get there, I guess, in part today, is just through, human to human interaction, right? Like, hey, I've got this thing I got to take care of. I'm not a SME, but I'm going to bring in people that I know to help me get the thing done. It's kind of happening through people to people interaction. But in the future, again, if the data sets are strong enough, the system will pull those people together. You'll get a little ping in the morning and you're off in this area doing this type of work. And I think, it ties back to what we were talking about earlier, that fixed education, structures is, we'll see how long it lasts, right? I
I,
well, go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
just I want to be empathetic to people because I know this time feels really uncertain and it feels really scary. I I don't want to downplay those feelings, but I just want to remind folks that we've gone through iterations of accessibility to information many a times, right? I remember having to go down to the library and check out a book on a particular topic if I wanted to learn about it, right? And then we
Yeah.
had search in the web, and it was like, holy goodness, like there's so much information here. And now
Yeah.
we have AI and we have trillions of data points at our fingertips, right? And our ability to be able to sift through all of that information, access the right information that's pertinent to the exact variables or particular problem that you're working on, and then your ability to actually go and apply those things, I think is what's really going to drive value. Um, and it can be uncomfortable, and it can be scary, but I think I tell this to my kids all the time. Like, if I can instill one thing in you as you go into schools, just like never lose that curiosity or that willingness to learn. And I think that that's just super important.
I
Information is,
I literally wrote down, be curious now. Like,
yeah,
don't let the walls of your existing organization stop you from being curious about things outside of the walls. Like, and ideally, right, the organization will allow you to maybe pre-select areas that you're interested in versus it just assigning you something. Um, but be curious now. I think Jessica, she wrote down, she built her entire nonprofit structure using Chat and Claude. I'm sure there was some experimentation in there. And you figured it out and worked on it as you went. That's also the nice kind of iterative experimental nature of AI that really can foster that curiosity for the organization. Just thinking a little bit more traditionally, like look at your learning pathways and your succession planning structures and reward, curiosity, reward, um, instead of fixed learning pathways or fixed succession pathways designed for the ability to experiment. I've seen this, I've read about this happening. I don't know exactly who does this, but experimentation within role, right? Allowing people to go for short periods of time to other areas of work to try things and build out that multidisciplinary concept and allow people to engage in learning pathways that are non-traditional from the role that they're currently in. I think, supporting succession planning like that, supporting learning pathways like that, and then again, if to validate the folks that might be worried about this moving faster, then the comfort is there for the data sets, the foundational data sets, like they have to be there. And I don't know about you, Stephen, but there's a good chunk of organizations out there who are still working through leveling up their maturity in terms of their data governance and the quality of their data. And so it'll be a minute, I think, but it doesn't mean that you can't start as an individual and that organizations can't start taking steps towards that, because I do think it's a long game. I don't think it's an overnight thing.
And I think as we think about leadership communities, and culture, we talk about this all the time. I think now more than ever, it's important to sort of align your career aspirations and your growth aspirations to the environment that is conducive to your ability to operate in this kind of space. Um,
You got to give some
because,
examples, man.
yeah, I mean,
That was a little woo woo.
well, a lot of times, like people would join a team, know that they can get some deep knowledge and subject matter expertise on that team. They would look at the org chart and see, oh, I can grow 3 or 4 levels on this team. This is a really good spot for me to be. Um, and those traditional structures that used to be in place, I think, are becoming less and less meaningful. And what's more meaningful is, do I have the um, the leadership that allows me to go and experiment, the leadership that encourages
Mm.
me to like take risks and seek out solutions, leadership that gives me feedback in real time, as I'm delivering. Am I able to expand my value in a way that I can scale, right? Like, am I delivering my projects just within this particular team, or is it cross team? Is it cross department? Is it across the whole entire enterprise? Right. So depending on what it is that you want to do, and if you're hungry for career growth, or you're hungry for a higher title or a higher spot in the hierarchy, right? The approach is different now. Um, a lot of people would just do what we would call like rest and vest, right? And that's not a thing so much anymore.
Mm.
You gotta line culture to your ambition, and if that culture is slowing you down or getting in the way, it's worth either having a conversation or worth having a look around.
And on that note,
I don't know if you agree or not, man. This is new
no,
territory.
no, I think that's subject agnostic, right? Like whether you're talking about a living organization or whether you're talking about like whether you're in the right place and the right fit, like you should be constantly evaluating that. And I think what you're saying, Stephen, is think about where you want to go. And if there are things in the way of you getting where you want to go, then you should work with the people, work with not the people, not necessarily the people, work with the things that are in your way and see if you can find a path forward, or to your point, find an alternative path. right? So
Yeah.
I get what you're throwing down. I agree with that, and I believe that's relevant whether we're talking about the subject tonight or really anything else.
Yeah.
If people are interested in it, but really good activity in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please message us. We'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation if you're interested in it.
And topics too.
Yeah,
We have quite a few new people on today. Brad and I brainstorm every week as to what we're going to talk about, and every once in a while we'll get somebody who's like, "Hey, can you guys talk about this?" And we
I,
love that. So please send us ideas. We're happy to chat about it.
I think I think since you highlighted nonprofit leadership, I think that's something we can go into in the near
Oh,
future.
for sure.
So, all right, have a great evening, everybody. Wishing you a great week ahead. Thanks for